It's an indescribable feeling, a feeling of purity, of holiness, of being so close to where all the prophets were.
It's a return, in a sense, to the center of life, to the center of existence. It's a return to the house of God.
It's tucked away in a very secretive kind of place. And as has been the case for many centuries, only Muslims go there.
You never know when you're going to die, so it sounds a bit morbid, but that's the reality of why I went when I did.
It's the mass of people who move together, going to one goal, doing the same thing. Right? They are going for one target. You ask yourself, why?
After the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the debate and the fascination surrounding him lingers. Across the United States, a number of events will be held to celebrate the life and remember the death of the former U.S. president. A special collection of rather intimate memories, 40,000 negatives to be precise, was never found in the rubble of September 11th. They'd been locked in a bank for safekeeping. However, digital technology has enabled the daughter of John F. Kennedy's personal photographer to reproduce hundreds of her father's pictures in a new book. Many of them have never been seen before in public.
Jacques didn't like the first portraits. He thought the whole thing was a disaster and was very heartsick. But a month or two later, he heard from Jack. He was told to do whatever he wanted. He was given no restrictions. I think it was very inventive, and I think they realized that Jacques was a wonderful photographer and would do very well by them.
My father stored his 40,000 Kennedy negatives in a safe at JP Morgan Chase. For him, the kernel of sort of value was in the negatives. So on September the 11th, of course, we didn't really know what happened. And without the negatives, for a moment, we sort of thought, well, maybe we're not going to be able to do this. But with, advances in digital technology, we could scan the contact sheets and reproduce them and blow them up and use those for the book.
Time Magazine's Hugh Sidey joins us now from Dallas, Texas. All right, now, Hugh, we're going to talk a little bit about a lighter moment, and you have to share with us the story about you, JFK, and no clothing.
Oh, the swimming pool story, yes, indeed. Well, I went over to interview him one morning, and he was apparently irritated at somebody in the world, and he said, Hugh, let's get out of here this morning. He said, let's go take a swim. And I said, Mr. President, when I come to interview you, I usually do not bring my swimming suit. And he said, well, in this pool, you do not need a swimming suit. Whereupon, as we got to the pool, I stood nervously at the side of the pool, wondering what protocol demanded here. Should I take my trousers off first, or should he? But he'd obviously done this before, and he was stripped down and in the pool. And so I took all my clothes off, and there ensued the only nude underwater interview that I've ever had with a president. And I suspect it's the only one I ever will have with a president.
What are the latest developments? Let's go over them right now. U.S. military officials say an evolving battle plan indicates the focus of the ground war will soon shift to Baghdad. Right now, we want to bring in retired General Dan Chrisman and get a little bit of perspective on the overall, the big military picture. General, where do things stand?
It's clearly time, based upon the air campaign, to move further forward against those divisions south of Baghdad. Two components, I think, Jim. One, the coalition very much wants to seal off the withdrawal routes. They'll do that amongst other methods by using the J-STARS aircraft that has moving target indicators in the belly and target any unit that begins to move north. This is the critical battle. Those three divisions are the gateway. The coalition airstrikes are preparing the battlefield as we speak. A very important period now coming up for the coalition and for the Iraqis.
A historic day for China as it sends its first taikonaut into space, blasting its way into
a look at state-run China Television's international broadcast, dedicating hours of coverage to the launch of the Shenzhou 5 capsule. So far, so good for the third country to put a person into space. He's being called a taikonaut. Already the space flights become a great source of national pride. But as Beijing Bureau Chief Jaime Floracruz reports, the goals and the expectations involve much more than that.
The spectacular liftoff of China's first manned spaceflight.
Joan Johnson-Fries has some unique perspective for us. You've seen parts of this program. What was it like? What were your observations?
The launch site that I was at is actually not the one they use for the manned launches, but they all share similarities in the rather surreal picture presented. It's a very rural setting. We literally waited for the water buffalo to get off the road to get to the launch site, and then you come upon this very modern, very sophisticated facility.
I don't know. Do I want to see more growth around here?
It's brought more opportunities, so I'm all for growth. It certainly seems to have driven up the price of real estate.
Growth can be a problem, but it's also a boon to economy.
We're definitely pushing our resources.
All kinds of wonderful things have been happening, but when it gets out of control, that's when I start to worry.
And now, Colorado's growing pains.
If you're traveling the interstate in the Springs this morning, you'll have lots of... From Denver to Pueblo, Interstate 25, which was conceived in the 1950s, simply carries more traffic than it was designed to handle.
That's definitely true. I-25 in Colorado Springs originally was designed to carry about 40,000 cars a day. Today we have over 100,000 cars a day.
As the population grows, so does the need for housing.
The last 5 to 6 years, a person can be as busy as they want to be.
Yeah, right down here.
Herb, Monica, and Jerry are part of the Northgate Open Space Committee. They formed the group 8 months ago because it's here a developer wants to build about 300 luxury homes.
Right here.
Yeah.
That's it. Right where all those trees are. Right down to the pond here, maybe.
Tobacco is the world's largest non-food crop, and it's easy to see why generations of...
The Department of Energy, which oversees the nuclear weapons program, more veterans are confident that one will be built, so that theirs will no longer be thought of as the forgotten war.
Chris Wheelock is standing by live at the Augusta Municipal Building.
As you said, it is an important public hearing. It gets underway within the hour, and I'll have the story coming up next. But this incident reinforces the charges that problems continue to exist here. Surrounding area. But the protesters outside the gate maintain there is a connection. This was a very important first exchange between the Soviet Union and the United States. With all their manpower and equipment, it's taken Savannah Riverside workers 3 days just
to give us more information on the study. Chris?
Thank you, Kathy. There were actually 2 studies performed. Students would gather in the street shouting, "Down with the dictator," and police would soon cordon off the street, pelting it with tear gas to clear it out. The police would, in the quest for democracy. Christopher Wheelock, TVB News, Gwangju. Welcome to News Roundup. A Taiwan government ad hoc group studying the lifting of a ban on travel to mainland. That's going to do it for us this evening. This is Thursday night. I'm Specialist Christopher Wheelock for Air Force Sergeant Ralph Henson and everyone here at AFK, and thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for Nightline. Good night.